for our camping trip. So we are setting up our tent and the new tarp. We steam sealed it about 2 weeks ago, and now we have to go back through and spray it with the UV protector and another layer of waterproofing since we're expecting some rain and fog when we're out by San Francisco. So that's our project for the day. Camping trips always involve a ton more preparation. We start weeks ahead of time getting our tent and all of our gear ready. And for this trip, we were using a brand new tent. It's a Henry Shire's ultralight tarp tent for backpacking. And then we also got this new tarp. It's our Sea to Summit tarp that we're planning on using for protection from the sun or the wind when we're in an exposed area. So we had to do all of our waterproofing and do UV treatments to make sure that there wouldn't be any damage.
Are you a YouTuber or something? Are you actually vlogging?
Sometimes, yeah. When we go on a trip, we'll do a video.
Once we had spent some time figuring out how to pitch the tarp and how to get the tent to stand up properly, we finished the waterproofing and then let everything dry so that we could get ready for the creative process of packing. And whenever we're trying to fly somewhere, this is always a challenge because we have to fit all of our camping gear into one suitcase and make sure that it is under the 50-pound mark so that we can check the bag. This flight from Philadelphia to California was one of my favorite flights ever, mostly because we left right at sunset and we were flying toward the sun, so it ended up being the flight of the never-ending sunset. There were hours and hours where the sky just kept changing colors and the clouds were moving, and it was just so much fun to look out the window and watch this process of us flying into the sunset.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to welcome you to San Francisco, where the local time is approximately 9:18 p.m.
When we got to San Francisco Airport, we had to do a little bit more running around than we were used to get the rental car. First, we had to go down to the baggage claim to get the suitcase with all our camping gear. Once we had our camping gear, then we made our way up several levels of escalators to the area where you catch the tram to go to the next terminal. So from that terminal, we had to go down, I'd say about a 20-minute ride to where the rental cars are. And then by the time we got to the rental car place, we were able to do the self-check-in, which was really quick. We grabbed the rental car that we wanted, threw our stuff in there, and then started the drive down to the Red Roof Inn. We were really happy that we picked the Red Roof Inn to stay that night. It was a quick drive. It was kind of late. They had a 24-hour diner downstairs, which had some great ramen noodles. But most of all, we just liked the location and the room. The room was really clean. I kind of wish we stayed there on the way back, too. Right outside our hotel is this really nice walking path here. There were a lot of people with their dogs this morning and some people jogging. And then behind that is the freeway, which we got to experience last night as we circled around 3 times to try to find our hotel. It turned out that this path outside of our hotel was part of the San Francisco Bay Trail. This trail is going to be a multi-use path that eventually goes around the entire San Francisco Bay. Right now it's about 350 miles or so that are completed, but eventually it's going to be about 500.
We just checked out of the Red Roof Inn, and we're going to take care of our first important piece of the checklist, which is going to get food. So we're going 6 minutes away to the Safeway,
Yep.
And we're going to do our provisioning for the camping portion of our trip. And I'm excited about that because last time when we were in Belize we had issues because we didn't have our food with us. So this time we are going to be fully prepared.
When we go to the food store, we have a special technique for planning our meals. So for each day that we're going to be camping and we need food, I write down in a notebook the letters BLD BSS, which stands for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and 2 snacks. So then for each day, as we go up and down the aisles and I pick things out that we can cook mostly with hot water, so it's easy on the camping stove, I just fill in each of the days until we end up with a list of breakfast, lunch, dinner, and 2 snacks for every day. Once we had our food for the trip situated, we headed into San Francisco because we wanted to make one more stop before going up to Point Reyes, and that was the San Francisco REI. It is way bigger than the REI that we have in New Jersey, and we had to pick up camping fuel for the stove so we could cook, but we really just wanted to check it out. When we finally had everything that we needed for the camping portion of our trip, we headed through San Francisco and went toward the Golden Gate Bridge so that we could go over the bay and toward Point Reyes. So we just got to the first visitor center at Point Reyes National Seashore, and we walked over to the side and found this really awesome place to make lunch. So we're going to have our first ramen noodles meal to mean that we're actually camping now. After lunch, we headed up to the hostel. We ended up deciding to stay in the hostel because there were no open campsites that were easy to get to, and we didn't want to have to hike in that night. So we stayed in the hostel, and we were actually pleasantly surprised. There was a huge kitchen with everything you could possibly need to cook, so we didn't even have to use our camping gear that night. We made dinner in the kitchen, and then there was a little dining room right off the side that we were able to use. After we had dinner, we went outside to watch the sunset over the mountains and then do some stargazing as it got darker. It was actually a really nice evening. The next morning we got to use the French press and the organic coffee and tea that was supplied by the hostel. This morning we had the pleasure of cooking breakfast in the hostel kitchen, which was really pretty well equipped with organic coffee and coffee grinder and a French press. So we enjoyed that. And then we went over to the park office and we got our wilderness permit so that we can hike out to the coastal campground tonight. But we only have about well, it depends on which trail we take. We can take a 1 mile trail out to the coast, or we can take like a little less than a 3 mile trail out there. So either way, it's not going to be a super long hike. So we decided to spend the morning and the afternoon going up to the far north end of the park, because the south end of the park has a lot more trees and forest, and we did a little walk around yesterday just to check it out. But the far north end of the park is where it's really open and you get these expansive views. So we decided to come up to this end of the park toward the Lighthouse and see if hopefully it's not too crowded over by the Lighthouse. road that goes about, what is it, 0.4 miles from the very crowded parking area up to the lighthouse. Easy paved road, but very nice view. Uphill from the parking area is the Lighthouse Visitor Center. Inside you'll find a little store and some information about the wildlife that you'll find in the area. There's a viewing location where you're protected from some of the harsh winds, and lots of information about the sea life that you can't see from the surface, but there's a lot going on underneath the water here. Past the visitor center, you find the stairs that lead down to the lighthouse. There are over 300 steps that go down, and it's a rather strenuous walk, but it offers a beautiful view, and it gets you a little bit of exercise on the way. The lighthouse itself was built in 1870, and it worked for over 150 years before it was retired and handed over to the National Park Service. So now it's just maintained as a historic site, and it's been replaced by an automatic light.
That's cool.
I can't go up. I thought maybe you could go up.
Dead end.
On the outside.
Dead end.
Should I be tour guiding?
This is things that make light to keep away boats from crashing.
Inside the lighthouse building, you can see some of the old parts from the lighthouse as the technology was updated throughout the years. And you can learn about what the life of the lighthouse keeper was like.
Going back up.
Huh?
Back up.
This is why we did our cardio. There's no rules on the stairs. Every man for himself. How you doing back there?
No.
We're almost there. Oh. You made it. After we had survived the climb back up the stairs from the lighthouse, we headed back to the car so that we could go down to the trailhead for the coastal campground. We had a little bit of a hike to get into our campsite, but this ended up being one of our favorite nights spent out in the backcountry. But for that, you'll have to watch part 2 of our video.